Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mark, and today I thought instead of just doing stuff and you watching, we can learn how to do the stuff. So today's video is about how to draw in Krita. We're just drawing, not painting, just drawing today. And I thought I'd take you, some of you, if you're new to digital art and you're wondering what program to use, and maybe you don't have Photoshop or Procreate, because every other video on YouTube is about Procreate. If you don't have those two, you can always use Krita. Here we are. When you open Krita, you get this splash screen, artwork by Tyson Tan. I'm using Krita 5.22. This is the interface you'll find on your machine, whichever OS you're using. I'm on Mac, by the way. You'll see some new image or open image. Here you'll see all the recent files or things you've done. Sort of use this as my own gallery, although sometimes if I'm not connected to my hard drives, this goes away. And you can also clear it if you don't like it. For example, let's say I don't like this sketch. I can say forget and it goes. Pretty simple. And then here we have news from Krita. Any updates, you'll find them here. And all these are links that will take you straight to the site. The last thing I clicked was this 5.2 because I was using 5.21. So now I'm using 5.22. And then down here, just to remind you, Krita is an open source and community-driven tool for digital artists everywhere. So when you're first starting out, you want to go to new image and you'll find this pop-up coming. And what I've noticed is the last settings I use is what will always come. You can click on predefined and click on whichever canvas texture, canvas size that you want. Usually I started at A4. 300 ppi. You can do film, you can do pixel. There's texture. I've never used these. And then some of these I added myself, and you can add them by, let's say you like square things. Let's do 2K by 2K, and let's put this at 150. So if you have this, you can say square 2K and save, and you'll find this at the bottom of your predefined list, so you don't always have to do this. I did the same for Instagram because mostly I post things on Instagram and I post them in portrait mode. So Instagram, you have 1080 by 1350. Sometimes I leave this at 300. Sometimes I start at 72 because it doesn't really matter because I'm not printing anything. Usually leave these alone. But if you're really into printing, you can change it to CMYK. Just leave it at RGB. I leave this at 8. Don't even know what this is, so I just leave it alone. And then on this other tab, you can name your document. Let's say mine is how to draw in Krita. And you can choose how many layers you want to start with. Usually it's 2, and you can choose your background color. Usually when you first start, it's usually at white, but I put it closer to gray. And there are other settings here. I leave them as they are. You can always change some things later. So that's how to create a canvas. And let's go to the navigation. As usual, you see the toolbox. I think this is a toolbox. I think that's the name it's called. And then you have some menu items on the top. You have some other items on the side. Now mine, because I use this app a lot, I've changed a few things here and there. For example, you might not have this overview window. Instead, you might have the brush settings or brush presets. But I find that having them here is a bit too much for me. So I just click here to get my brushes. And they have categories and all that stuff. Most of these things are available in Photoshop if you're like me and you're navigating from Photoshop or from Adobe in general to open source software. Most of these work the same. The main ones I use are the brush. I use a line tool sometimes, but I use a shortcut, and the selection tools down here. Usually the rectangle, polygon, and the freehand, and sometimes the fill tool and the gradient tool. So I hope I haven't changed too much of the shortcuts, but I'll try and show you a few things. So for example, on this glove, I have chosen a basic brush. You can use a line tool to make straight lines, and if you press shift while holding the line tool, you get straight angles. Then you have the marquee selection, so the rectangle selection, and you can fill it with your color. You can have the This is a freehand selection, or the lasso tool can fill this with your color, or you can have the polygon selection and you can fill that with a paint bucket or fill tool. To deselect, you'd have to come here and say deselect, but I think I changed mine to Control D because that's the deselect in Photoshop, and I'm used to Photoshop. Yeah, you can always change shortcuts depending on what you want. And speaking of shortcuts, I have the default for mirroring your screen is M. If you tap on M, you can mirror your screen, and that's useful for checking your proportions. Although usually I don't do this. I don't do this much because I find it's kind of odd for me. So usually just look at the overview thing, or I walk away from my computer, go do something for like 5 minutes, then come back and I'll see the imperfection. But if you're into the mirroring, good for you. Good for you. And another shortcut that you might be interested in, let's just delete this layer, we'll get to layers in a few, is changing your brush size. You can do this in 3 ways. The first way is the obvious way of coming to the size and just changing it like that. Second way, using the bracket tools, the square brackets. When you're in brush mode, when you press shift and then tap on your screen, drag to the right is to enlarge your brush, drag to the left is to minimize your brush. That's one thing. And then another thing that you might like is changing the value without actually coming here. I slightly changed these shortcuts, but yours should be K and L. So if you press K, see the value gets darker. And if you press L, but mine is J, see the value gets lighter. So this is useful if you are into value or no-tan painting, and because every YouTube teacher will tell you all about value and stuff. Okay, those are the useful shortcuts. Some shortcuts I carried from Photoshop is the L. L is usually for lasso. So I programmed my shortcut to this freehand selection. And then P is for pen, usually in Adobe programs, but I use it for polygon selection. What else? And something, if you're from Photoshop and you like to make straight lines, instead of just coming to the line tool, you can, in brush mode, press V, and then come and add your line. Press V, stroke. And if you want it more angled, like in 90 degrees and stuff, press V, then shift V, shift V, start, then press shift to keep it locked at that 180-degree angle. So I think that's the useful one. Oh, it's something else I use a lot is the fill and the gradients. So let's say we have a selection like this. Instead of coming here to the paint bucket, I programmed mine to the F key. So F fill, F for fill, I mean, and then G for gradient. So I don't know. Oh yeah, by default, it's gradient from the color to transparent. So let's change it to foreground to background, yeah, something like that. I think that's it for most of that. But the final one, actually I have two more that you might need, you might require. So if you have to transform your selection or your layer or whatever it is you're transforming, I go to Control T. Not quite sure if Control T is programmed by default or if it's my own thing, but it's the same as tapping on this thing. So you can transform this however you want. You can distort it, you can rotate it. And also there's something I should add. You go to settings and darkers, you can click on tool options, and with your tool options you have more options. So if you want to transform this is the anchor point. If you want to transform it on this point, maybe distort, this is the distort, and you can do your respective things. This is the warp, so if you manipulate these handles, you can warp your thing. This is the, I don't know what this is. I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. Never use this or this, but I use this quite a lot. This is the liquify. This is Krita's liquify. So you can liquify and warp, but basically the same-ish, but the same but different. And then when you're done, you can just press enter or return. You're on this particular operating system. Okay, that was one. What was the other? The other was zooming in and out. I programmed mine to the Z key and then Option Z to zoom out. Zoom on Z, Option Z to zoom out. You can do all your shortcut things on Krita preferences, or if you're on Windows, you go to settings, then preferences, and then keyboard shortcuts, and find what you want. Example, zoom, and then you can change it to whatever it is you want. So I also changed zoom to 100% with Control 0. So Control 0 will give me 100% fill. Control 1 will fill my canvas on the screen. Then what else? I think we've gone into the realm of shortcuts. So let's do 3 more. You can move and pan your canvas around using the space bar and drag. I removed my scrolly things because I never use them. I just use space. And the other thing is color picking, which is very important in digital painting. In brush settings, to color pick, which is option in Photoshop or alt in Photoshop. In Krita, it's control. So if I want this color, control tap paint, control tap paint, control tap paint. And then if you're going to be using like a pen tablet, if you're using it really often, it will benefit you to program one of these buttons on your stylus to color pick. So instead of pressing control or command, I programmed this key to my middle mouse. So this is my middle mouse, and it's only that because I use Blender also, and the middle mouse is really important in Blender. So what I did, kept it at middle mouse, but in my preferences, went to canvas input and then alternate invocation. I added the mouse middle button to sample color from everything. So instead of pressing control, I just press this and I continue. So with this as middle mouse also, I found that when you press command and this button as middle mouse and drag, you can zoom in and out. If you press shift and middle mouse, you can rotate your canvas, and to reset the rotation, just press 5. So that can be helpful for someone. If you get nothing else, get that, because I've never heard anyone tell me in any of these tutorials that I can do the zoom and the rotation with just this button. So that's it for navigation. Let's go to brushes. So in your interface, what you might have is a brush setting docker, brush preset. So something like, where is it? Where'd you go? 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 Oh. It's on my other screen, sorry. Okay, you might have something like this present on your screen. So this is your brush thing. All your brush packs will be here. And speaking of brushes, if you want some brushes, I've collected a few from various sources. They're not mine, but you can find them in the link in the description below. Just go check them out. Fill your brush library if you want. Although Krita already has like hundreds of brushes by default. But if you like collecting brushes, you can just download some of them from the link in the description. So this is your brush preset menu. I don't like it when it's on the screen because I feel like it takes away my concentration so much. But you might like it, it's fine. And usually people put it somewhere like this so that they always can see what's going on. But I don't like it because I can find the same on this menu key. So I already have some favorite brushes, but you can see it has several brushes around here you can play around with. And yeah, if you would like to play around with your brushes some more, on this button you can change a few things. You can make your own brush and a lot of things that I don't really do yet because most of the brushes I have are really good. I've already used this. This is the pattern thing. I haven't used this so much. Not quite sure what it's supposed to do, but this is the gradient thing that we just used. And this is the default color. Tap on this, you can have that. Or maybe another shortcut that I failed to mention is changing colors from your foreground to the background. Just press X. So this is my foreground color now. It's black. And I press X, the other color shifts. So something like so. Really helpful when you have, for example, gradients. Example this, and you want to gradient it with this. Have something like so. Or if you want to change, something like so. And the shortcut that everyone loves, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you this. It's Control Z. Control Z, Command Z undoes everything. And Control Shift Z redoes stuff. Okay, I think think that's a lot. I think that's a lot for one lesson. So let's go to the themes probably. Because if you're like me, you like to see, you like pretty things, you like a pretty interface. So what I actually did was take my Krita, remove all the themes that I installed so that at least we can follow along with each other. So you can get themes by going to settings, themes, and selecting whichever theme that you like. There are some custom ones like this Dracula and Ravbox and these last three, and I usually use the very dark one, but I won't do that for today because there's some things that you might not get to see if I use the really, really dark one. So this was my favorite one. My favorite default theme is the Krita Dark Orange. You can see it just changes everything to black and then the highlight things to orange. Something else that you might want to check is their settings, Docker's recorder. This enables me to have like a time lapse of whatever it is I'm doing. I don't think I'm going to get into that today, but I hope with more recent releases of Krita, it's less complicated than I had to set it up. So it's always on, and I put the thing here so I can see. And you can see down here, there's a record thing. So everything I do, you can see the red record thing do its thing. And when I stop, it stops. The other thing, probably if you like to have something close to this, you can go to settings, configure toolbars, and then come to brushes and stuff and just add things that you think you need from here to here. Very, very simple. The next thing is probably you need to know about the layers. So layers are they're very same across multiple programs. Let me just delete this. Usually you come with a background layer and that's usually locked. But if you want to paint on it, just click on this button and start going wild. If not, just lock it and you won't be able to see to do anything because you say layer is locked. Then you can add all sorts of layers. Usually it will be a paint layer by default. Now on this layer you can paint stuff. Let's just do a big ball, and then you can play with layer modes if you wish. The only 2 layer modes that you should know if you're a really beginner, that's multiply for shadows and overlay for highlights. That's all you need to know. The only difference with Krita and other programs is when it comes to clipping. Now clipping just means I can paint on top of this layer without affecting any other thing on the canvas. And clipping is a non-destructive thing. Otherwise you can just lock the pixels and paint on top. Now clipping does the same thing, but make sure that you don't lose the initial color, this color. So the difference with Krita and other programs is you don't have clipping layers, you have clipping groups. So you can get them 2 ways. You can sort of add a new layer, select both, then Control G to group them, and then on the layer on top of the layer you want to clip to, you press this button. See, there are 3 buttons here, or icons. There's the lock icon, there's the infinity, actually it's not in the alpha symbol, and the transparency lock. So you press on the alpha, and on the alpha, if you do that, you can clip whatever you want on top, and you still have that thing at the bottom. The other way is with the same sort of thing. If you have this layer, just Control Shift G, that will make a clipping group with an already masked layer. See, it's already clicked, and then you can paint on top of that. And usually this is how I add shadows and highlights to stuff. So usually I start with shadows. So multiply the same color and probably a soft brush, airbrush, something. Add a bit of shadow on your thing, be a bit darker. Have the Terminator. Once you have something like that, if you want to erase anything in Krita, the same brush that you have, if you press E, you see this lights up. This means the brush is in eraser mode. So if I brush along, maybe it will be more evident on the actual layer. If I brush along, you can see I am erasing stuff. Now let's add a bit of a highlight. So I've added a new layer. Usually it's not clipped, so I can see the paint goes over the thing. But if I press the alpha symbol, locks it, something like that, and maybe really bright highlight over here. That's very much it with clipping in Krita. And if you're cool with this, just press Control E, which flattens this layer so that makes it permanent. Cool. Are there any questions? Do you have any questions? Teaching is fun. Anyway, with your brushes, you have erasers, you have brushes, you have oil, you have stuff. You also have things called blenders. I use the Q-tip one. So if you really have harsh lines, you can just come in and blend them. If you want to keep them within your shape, just lock the layer here. It's the same as locking the layer here. So now I'm just blending, making everything smooth. You can do the same if you're like really good at doing it with paint. So that's technically we've drawn something. We have drawn something, but let's hide that. Let's do something else. And what was it? Oh yeah, the thing I wanted to mention is because Krita is free and open source, there are a lot of modifications you can do to the actual interface. And one of them is called UI design. I switched it off just for this tutorial so I can change few things, but I have to restart my app so that you can see those changes. So I'm going to do that in 3, 2, 1. Save that. You can see some things have changed. Now my toolbar is floating and I have tool options already. With every tool I pick, the options come direct. I don't need the docker around. So this is what I use usually. But the problem with this theme for teaching is, for example, when I paint something, or if I paint something, what is going on? Oh, sorry, I'm using the blender. So if I paint something and I press erase, you don't see the button. So that's probably going to be a problem. It's doing something actually. If you check really close, you'll see faint highlight. And that's why I use this theme. Again, can't do it. Oh yeah, this theme so that it's more evident to me when I'm in erase mode. But this is my actual working file. This is what I do, what I use from day to day. So I don't remember where I got this from, but if I do, I'll link it in the description. Anyway, let's paint something. Or no, we're drawing. Let's draw something. Let's draw something. I have a reference over here, and if I just drag and drop any file from my folders, it's going to ask me to insert as a new layer file. Don't know what that is. Open a new document or insert as reference. So when you click on reference, get something like this. So it's always on your screen, and then you can just use it as reference. Usually I go to my sketch brushes and use this. I think this comes in default in Krita. If not, there are some sketch brushes in the brush pack I mentioned in the beginning. So you're going to do a rough sketch of maybe half this bird so that this video isn't super long. Been recording for 40 minutes. You lie. Anyway, I'm just going to show you how the shortcuts I mentioned make work a bit easier, because now I'm just zooming with my middle mouse button and control, setting up my angle. If you need to shift, draw something better, do that. Press 5 to reset, and let's just sketch the head. I think that will be fine for this thing. If you're enjoying this, kindly let me know so you can make more things like this, more educational content instead of just time lapses, which I don't mind, by the way, but I feel like time lapses are just that, not doing much. Some people might learn from them, but some might not. And I want people to be able to get something when they watch my videos. So let me know. And also, if you'd like to support the channel, check out the link in the description, my Buy Me a Coffee. I'll be very grateful for your support so we can make more content just like this. Help whoever needs help. Can try and make actual content on how to actually draw. If that's of any interest to anyone, just let me know in the comments. And if I didn't say it before, thank you very much for clicking this video, because there are a lot of intro to Krita videos out there and you chose mine. I'm so happy you chose mine. You can shift. If you're the mirroring person, this is the part where you mirror to see whether you have any dimensional mistakes, proportional mistakes rather. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. Once again, if you're not new, you know that sometimes I can go overboard with my sketches, and I sometimes tend to overdo it. It becomes more of a painting than a sketch. Isn't bad, but when it comes to teaching, and I'm teaching people, probably need to tone it down. Now, if you're paying attention in the beginning, know that you can change the value of your painting or drawing, not really painting, using the by default K and L. Mine is K and J. So J is to lighten the color. You can go all the way to white. And the only reason you can see this white is because our background is gray. Because our background is gray, the whites pop a bit more. So you can have something like that. It's too much, go down. You want more. So it's kind of like sketching with colored pencils now. And I think I am going to make this my brightest area. There has to be a sort of balance when it comes to this part of the color wheel, because it's the same as the actual background. So we're just sketching a few things. Maybe increase my brush size for this part of the feather. And you can do this with any brush that you like. I've never been able to use the hard round brush, but some people are pros at using that. So if you like the hard round brush, use that. If you like the sketchy brushes, use that. If you find something else, use that. Now let me just highlight the rim of the beak, sort of. Undo that. Rim of the beak. Not really that color, but helps. Then let's make this part really dark for that opening, and then other rim of the beak, something like so. So Control 1 resizes the canvas, and then Control T, you can place your parrot anywhere you like. You can do this in color, you can do this in black and white, and then add color using adjustment modes, layer modes. For example, this is the last thing we're doing today. Shift Control G, the mask layer, turn it from normal to color. And if you can't do the color thing by yourself, we're beginners, we're allowed to color pick. Let me use a soft brush so that we do this really quick and overlay your color directly. And note that your color will only work on the paint layer, not on the background. So if you want stuff on the background, you have to do something like so. The selection tool, select all around your bird, add to a selection, press shift and include those bits. And then with your fill brush, let's use this color and do something like that. And then continue painting, and so on and so on and so on. So that's basically it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it's not too long, but I hope you learned something. I'm going to continue to try and teach something. So if you like that, kindly like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Again, if you want to support me and the channel, check out the link in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Thumbs up. Bye-bye.